Before we get started, I want to give a special thank you shout out to the patrons in the Mutt tier. They are Wilma, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Ken K of Warheads, Super Hyper Mecha SP Mark II, Sirius the Skeptic, and welcome back Biotin, good to see you here again. And I've bought the entire helium supply, have fun blowing up balloons now. Thank you. Hi, what's up? I'm Channel Pup, the mascot for the Level-Headed Fanboy, and it's safe to say that the hype for the third Sonic movie is going full speed ahead. Get it, speed, because he's Sonic and he's... Anyways, we can expect some kind of trailer or casting announcement pretty much any time now, so in anticipation of further news, I figured now's as good a time as any to discuss what I hope to see in Sonic 3. Now, before we get stuck in, if you love Sonic, congrats, you've found someone who loves Sonic just as much as you do. How about we make this official? Come on, hit that subscribe button, YOLO! And as always, this video is brought to you thanks to the support of my generous patrons. To find out how you can become a patron, the Patreon link is in the description below. For one-off support though, the link to my Ko-Fi is also in the description below. Your support helps me out a ton, and it will be rewarded. Hey?
Hi.
Are you okay?
Yeah?
You wanna be in this video too?
Sure.
Cool, put your Hedgehog suit on then and let's get started. I guess I'm kinda just dragging Sonic content creators out of retirement, and that reminds me. Hey buddy, how are those new Sonic videos coming along?
Oh, hi Pup. They're not ready yet. I just need a little bit more time.
2 weeks, Dylan. You don't want to suffer the same fate as the old Sunset City gang now, do you? Okay, I guess I'll start us off. Now, I think we need a nice balance between the human cast and Hedgehog cast for Sonic 3. Now, saying this, I do want to make clear I don't include Robotnik in that argument. Yes, he's a human character, but he's a Sonic character first and foremost. These films have no trouble justifying his presence. In Sonic 1, the cast was predominantly human though, with Sonic being the only Mobian for the entirety of the film aside from the opening and after credits. And it worked just fine, but it's safe to say the film felt incredibly timid towards Sonic on a whole. And that's because the film was timid towards Sonic on a whole. I'm not saying the film is bad or anything, but look, don't argue, okay? Look at what they were originally going for and tell me this exudes confidence in the IP. Sonic 2 quite drastically reduced the screen time of the human cast, which was a good thing for a story adapting Sonic 3 and Knuckles. However, the little inclusion that the humans did get this time felt a lot more forced. I don't mind seeing characters like Tom and Maddie when they're interacting with Sonic and his friends, but I think Sonic 2 kinda lost me when it devoted 6 minutes to Rachel driving a golf cart around and threatening the gun commander, while Sonic characters, you know, the people we're there to see, were completely absent for those 6 minutes. I call it the pee break scene, but in all seriousness, Sonic 2, while better than the first in my opinion, tried perhaps just a little too hard to justify the human characters, and I think Sonic 3 needs to do a better job at making these two elements feel diegetic. You're going to flinch, but I think the humans need to be more present this time, but they need to be firmly integrated into the stories of the Mobian cast. Sonic 3 adapting Sonic Adventure 2, even if it is a loose adaptation, does offer a better opportunity to do this, as unlike Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Adventure 2 does take place in an explicitly human-populated world, with a military and a president. This formula should feel right at home adapting this story because the human world is a big part of Sonic Adventure 2's DNA.
I mean, sure, it's certainly possible, so long as there isn't an overabundance of randoms that relay their life stories and trauma dump to the 3-foot-tall Hedgehog. An angle that could be interesting though is Shadow interacting with humans. He was raised around them and his last memory would have been of violence, so seeing him open up to human characters, relevant human characters again, yeah, that wouldn't hurt to have it slapped in there.
Alright, well, first thing I'd really love to see in the next and potentially even future films, for all our titular characters to become even more in line with their game counterparts as we move forward through this new film series. Now granted, in almost all cases of adaptation imaginable, there are certain sacrifices that must be made for the sake of quality and consistency, and this was undoubtedly one of them, especially in the first movie. However, as we move more into the realm of game lore, this could very easily give us an opportunity to get the ultimate origin story for Sonic. Or, I guess, a Sonic origin story. Or the only one. For example, rewind back to Sonic 1 real quick. Our introduction to the TikTok-using, Paramount binge-watching DC cultist Hedgehog focused on establishing his character. Safe to say that he wasn't exactly the idealistic one-for-one recreation a lot expected from the games. Instead of being cocky and diving headfirst into danger, he self-isolated and came to be who he was because of his loneliness. Instead of wanting to live free and without restraint, he sought to have friendships and be around those who he cared for. They transformed the core of Sonic's values wildly adrift from what a majority of fans were expecting, leaning into the found family archetype. You know, like in cult classics like Paul and the Smurfs. I thought this decision worked fine in the end product, while others seemingly coped super hard, but I have always held faith that as the films progressed, so too would the characterization of Sonic. And lo and behold, Sonic 2, he's beginning to show signs of becoming the snarky asshole we know and love. Through the addition of Tails and Knuckles and their on par to debatably better characterization, it allowed Sonic to begin showing traits we come to expect, such as the older brother to Tails and the constant button pushing of Knuckles. It's definitely heading in the right direction, but it's not there yet. And if we keep going, we might finally arc around to him becoming as close to the main figure as we could possibly get. Of course, it won't be an entirely perfect recreation, since he'll still have some attributes designed to entice the children with funny Fortnite and bodily excretion, but it'll be close enough. Because while I believe the whole family archetype works right now, I would like to see a progression of Sonic finally gaining some much needed independence, especially if you're going all in with the early 2000s style story with Shadow at the helm. In the end, if they do create an arc and are going forward with it in Sonic 3, it would be just... it would be fucking dope to see a send-off for the films to be Sonic actually maturing to his adventure, or even, I'll take the classic characterization. I just want the characters finally doing unequivocally game things. Wait.
Your editing is really slick, I'm honestly envious, but I don't entirely disagree with your point either, which may come as a shock to people who have kept up with my videos on Sonic and the characterization of Sonic. I've often stated that I personally prefer movie Sonic to his game counterpart because there's a lot more rhyme and reason to who he is. His signature confidence and determination rooted in his friends who he couldn't live without. It just makes him a more compelling character in my opinion. However, treating this as an origin story and having him evolve into a more mature, more independent Sonic would only complement the context of the previous movies. I think it would be cool to see Sonic become a little less domesticated going forwards. By all means, keep the Wachowskis as that parental figure for him, but have him flee the nest and go on his own adventures going forward. He's ready now.
Yeah, I know, I just said that.
They need to do Amy.
You might want to rephrase that.
I know, I heard it as I was saying it. Amy is a character that rarely receives her dues, often underestimated by Sega and the fans alike. I mean, for Pete's sake, the poor girl was excluded from Sonic Mania and wasn't playable in any classic Sonic game until recently. The tides are changing for little Amy Rose though, and it stands to reason that the films follow suit. I won't lie, when I saw Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles fighting side by side, that actually hit me harder than the first time we saw the Avengers assemble, I shit you not. I mean, if Spider-Man were there, things would have been a bit different, just so you know where my priorities lie, but Team Sonic is not complete yet. Amy is an integral part of the team. Now, movie Sonic is a lot more openly compassionate than his game counterpart and a bit more emotionally candid. However, he's with his boys now. He's finding his strides, and like Tom Topic said, it would be great to see Sonic gradually evolve more into his game counterpart, and the perfect way to offset this is to have Amy in there. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, they're all bros. They can share a bit of a banterful back and forth, and sure, when the chips are down, they're all capable of kindness, but if these guys are to go on to become the Sonic superheroes, having Amy there to remind everybody to slow down once in a while and just be kind will do wonders. As well as that, if Sonic 3 is adapting Sonic Adventure 2, then Amy is arguably one of the most important characters in that story. She's the one who gets through to Shadow, purely because she's not treating him as a problem or an enemy to thwart like Sonic and the gang do. She's compassionate towards him, and that reminds him that on the world below, the world he seeks to destroy, there are people just like his beloved Maria, pure of heart, motivated by compassion. Amy was already robbed of this moment in Sonic X, and if we're doing this story, I don't want her to be robbed of that again. She's worth more than that. But on top of that, representation in films does matter too, especially when it comes to kids' movies. I know it would mean a lot to a lot of the girls in the audience if they had a Mobian that they could call their own.
In a similar vein though,
I return once more, and now I also demand the exact same thing I've been demanding for close to a year at this point if you're caught up on my immensely deep lore. Add more game stuff, but don't add too much. That sounds contrary to my first ideal I brought up, but if you're anything like me, then you're kind of a gamer. You know, you've got your NES and Sega Genesis cartridges collecting dust, and you played your Dooms and your Assassin's Creeds and your Tomb Raiders and your World of Warcrafts and your Uncharteds, and you feel immense pain watching all of these movies. Oh no! The bar for video game movies and adaptations is superbly low, you don't need me to tell you. Now, many, myself included, have dissected and tried to understand why these movies just fucking suck, and there are several conclusions that can be made depending on which film you're looking at. For some, it's focusing on the wrong areas, some it's lazily copy-pasting events from the games in less coherent manner, some don't give a rat's ass about the source material and proceed to snort a line while writing the screenplay. Monkey. And then there's the other side of the coin, where filmmakers take way too much source material and rely on a bombardment of references to keep the film afloat. When a director begins to reach their grubby mitts into a food bank of source material and takes triple the portion size, that's instantly a red flag that they have no clue what they're doing. These adaptations are slowly getting better though. I mean, Arcane built on the pre-established world building of League of Legends and its cast. You got the Cuphead show, that's just a well, it's just a 1920s cartoon in the flesh, except with a modern coat of paint, and the two Sonic movies have been very selective on what features from the games they include, like select characters, MacGuffins, plot points, and smaller nods to the games, and then if you look over there, you'll see that Halo's currently on fire. Translating one medium to another like this is a difficult thing to accomplish, since putting all your cards into the game lore territory and assuming the audience will understand perfectly because it was detailed in the games can lead to directors failing to explain to the audience what the fuck is going on. And if you ask me, I feel that game movies work better with looser material. Like, for example, in the recent Uncharted movie, the relationships between Nate and Sully and Chloe felt a lot less light-hearted and wacky as their game counterparts because they already fleshed out entire cinematic stories and arcs in the games. A game that heavily features a story and fleshed out characters will be harder to adapt because you either change too much so that it feels wrong, or you keep it the same and the plot devolves into a readable bore. Now, back to topic, Sonic 1 was very solid and safe in this regard, as, like I said earlier, they picked and chose the components from the loose source material. The classic games are just plain and simple. You go fast, you fight an angry breakfast commodity, easy as that, so it's no surprise that they decide to ground the film and make it focus on characterization first and foremost. Sonic 2 works as well with the more lore-heavy stuff, but the exposition used to explain certain key elements to the story felt quite sloppy and done just for the sake of explaining the premise to people who don't know Sonic lore. It could have definitely been worse, but for Sonic 3 and the Knuckles spin-off, we need to get proper logical explanations for characters and items in a way that feels more natural, like how they were handled in the first movie. I'm not saying don't continue to take risks, because I undoubtedly want to see more game content be plastered to millions on the big screen, but continue to only pick things that make sense to regular viewers and please fans so that the films still follow the new rules set up in this new world. I don't make the rules, I don't know who does, but the rule book for these movies better be more reliable than the game's rule book. Mostly because there isn't one, but hey ho, we can just reboot the series and flip the moon around like nothing happened. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Hey, no disagreement from me there. The Sonic movies don't need to adapt everything. In some cases, it's actually nice to just get cute nods and winks, like the Splash Hill water truck or the Mean Bean. While I don't think we need to just restrict ourselves to adapting just one Mobian at a time, there are definitely areas where they can afford to show restraint. You can make anything work, sure, but I don't think the Chaotix or Mighty and Ray or Metal Sonic are necessarily essential. I'd say Rouge is pretty essential to Shadow's story though, so I'm hoping we'll see her in some form. Okay, my takes are going to get a bit more monkey brain going forward, but here goes. Space. I want to see movie Sonic and friends go to space. All the best Sonic games have space in them somewhere. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Adventure 2, he's in space at the start of Sonic Unleashed and at the end of Sonic Frontiers. Take my boy to space. Space is cool. Movie Sonic hasn't been to space yet. If we're adapting Sonic Adventure 2, we've got the perfect opportunity to take Sonic to space. The films make a point of him being an alien, even referring to him as a space hedgehog, yet we've never seen the guy go to space. It's time.
Wish number 3, I'd like to see more dynamic action scenes and shot types in Sonic 3. Don't get me wrong, the fighting, escalations and actions are leaps and bounds better in Sonic 2 compared to Film 1. However, just because a majority of the action is good, that doesn't mean it can't be even better and more likely to give fans the most arousing experience in their seats as possible. Out of all the action in the movie, I think we can all agree that the peak was the confrontation between Sonic and Knuckles in Labyrinth Zone. Mais pourquoi? Well, there are multiple factors as to why this scene just felt perfect, down to the context of the rest of the film, the clashing of ideologies, the set piece literally being straight out of the games, but above all else, the perspective, choreography, and cinematography were the big 3 reasons why this sequence was the highlight. And I am a big sucker for perspective. For a majority of the punches and dashes and bouncing and other good chunks of the choreography, we're right in each character's face or given a POV of their sight. When you place the camera right in the midst of a high-paced sequence, the audience gets a better sense of power and the sheer force that's happening on screen, as if we're there with the characters and subsequently getting the shit kicked out of us. And even after the intense action has died down, the cinematography is still so fucking good and still so goddamn clean that it looks like it surpasses the games in terms of scale of the whole scene. It's so good. So in perspective, cinematography and choreography are used correctly, it makes these shots feel like they have so much more power than if they were, say, static shots looking from a distance at the action. Super Sonic's reveal was cool, okay? It was a good climax and it fit in since we saw Super Robotnik earlier. And to be honest, you don't need to do much to convey how he's fucking broken on the power scale. But the final confrontation, to me at least, it felt like it could have been at the very least a bit more effective at conveying this to the audience that isn't aware of how utterly ripped this form is in the games. Just something a little bit more so it can hold a candle to the Labyrinth Zone fight for the climax of the film. If I could, I have a little notepad here that I store in my inventory slot, don't ask what's in the other slots. This has some more direct ideas and concepts for how you can make the action be peak in Sonic 3. For starters, I want to see more tracking shots close behind the character. Taking an example, the little sequence we have of Sonic rushing through the precarious obstacles before the Knuckles confrontation was okay, but what if we got a perspective like we see from the Boost games like in Unleashed? If we could have followed behind with the camera sticking close and pivoting around the corridor as Sonic becomes a ballerina on roller skates, that would put us in the shoes of Sonic, exactly what the best Boost games in the series do. Think of that one shot from the Eternals. But good. Would be more interesting to view for the audience, would make the fans even more enthralled, would piss off critics even more. It's a win-win-win scenario. Another thing jotted down right here, a running segment at some point between Sonic and Shadow, that would be cool. I think just go full in with Adventure 2. More of the character backstories giving reason for them fighting, that was neat, but maybe fewer flashback sequences, that would be appreciated. Video going back to Pup.
Movie Robotnik hasn't really had a big base before. Yeah, he's got the mean bean, he's got his truck, and he's got that little egg vessel in movie 2, but we haven't had that big Eggman fortress with the pendulums of doom and the saw blades, the works. Sonic has only really ran around cities, towns, and natural environments. Give me a Robotnik base. Give me the Death Egg, or the Space Colony Arc, or Eggman Land. Heck, I'll even take Egg Station. I mean, it does seem appropriate that we get the Space Colony Arc in some form in this film. Oh, I really hope we see that. Okay, admittedly, it isn't an Ivo Robotnik base, but hey, it can be adapted, changed, whatever. Maybe Gerald is part of this. Gerald is a Robotnik after all. A Robotnik base is a Robotnik base. Ah well, whatever they do, at least we have the Project Shadow fan film.
So, for number 4 of mine, I'm intrigued in seeing more varied game-themed locations on Earth or potentially other planets. What? Okay, so it's a more basic request that will definitely come true. If I reach back into my handy-dandy notepad once again, it's incredibly versatile. Skip that for next video. Use of color. Okay, list of locations we could see. Location 1, San Francisco again. I know we already visited this city in film 1, but if I don't see Shadow on top of the Golden Gate Bridge or eating eggs with Venom, then I'd be utterly disappointed. On a deeper level though, revisiting San Fran could give us as close to Adventure 2 on the big screen as possible. All we'd need is for Shadow to grind down the bridge rails, evade or destroy the police, pick up a bike at some point, doesn't have to be for too long, and of course the background music must drown out all dialogue in the scene, and then we're golden on Adventure 2. Oh, and while I'm at it, allow me to inject a dopamine-fueled concept into your brain. Shadow and Knuckles, big screen brawl, Golden Gate Bridge. That would burn down entire cinemas because of how raw that would be. Location 2, Tokyo. This isn't so much a reference to any of the adventure games in particular, but more to the classics like Stardust Speedway, Good Future, or potentially even Studiopolis if that's doable. I doubt that Shadow and the whole edgy early 2000s aesthetic will be the only new addition to Film 3, so while metal is looking very slim, including something relating to CD or any of the other classic gems would be a treat. Location 3, London for Scrap Brain Zone. Location 4, I think could be an extension of the satellite we saw of Robotnik's pod that came down from Earth in the second movie. There's clearly some Robotnik property up in the atmosphere, so we better see more of that in film 3, and if I'm not mistaken, a similar point was brought up earlier by the dog. Olive Garden, featuring Gunman and his army of $50 coupons. Venice or Florence, I'm really not expecting this at all, and I don't feasibly see how they can incorporate Italy into film 3 at all, but having a more relatively modern city such as Spagonia from Unleashed be represented could allow fans of the newer generation of games in the series to resonate with the movie and also the standard that thrives on Twitter and eats itself alive. Doesn't even have to be Italy. I mean, there's the Mediterranean coastline of Greece for Apotos, or Cairo could be Shimar. If you wanted to, a really safe call is to have New York plopped in there purely because Empire City just exists, but this is all stretching it a bit too far, and I've fulfilled my quota of barfing up Unleashed in every single video. Probably the Mushroom Kingdom for one. And lastly, an exotic island somewhere on the equator. If we're going for Adventure 2, then you got to have the jungle level reference somewhere with overlapping voices.
I'll make you eat those words!
Okay, I believe my notebook is now empty. For now, at least.
Fix the music. My god. Fix the damn music. Holy crap, Lois. When it comes to the success of Sonic as a franchise, even in the lowest of lows, the music has generally done a lot of heavy lifting. Did they release a mediocre Sonic game? Well, the silver lining is that you're getting some banger new music to listen to. Usually anyway, there are a few rare exceptions. Sonic has encompassed so many different styles and genres over the years, be it chiptunes, new jack swing, rock, funk, metal, jazz, EDM, and Sonic music is totally unmistakable. The scores for the first two movies are simply not that. Now, composer Tom Holkenborg is returning to Sonic 3 after scoring the first two. However, what went so wrong with those soundtracks isn't exactly his fault as far as I understand, as he was mandated to stick to orchestration and be incredibly sparing on game music, after he himself mentioned in an interview that he wanted to compose the music of the first movie using the Sega Mega Drive sound chip and wanted Green Hill's leitmotif to serve as Sonic's theme. So for this one, Paramount need to let Holkenborg cut loose. I understand the scores of the classics are wrapped up in different rights issues, be it with Dreams Come True or the Michael Jackson estate, but Sega own all the music for Sonic Adventure 2, so I want to hear Tom Holkenborg adapt this. But let's say we don't for whatever reason, and I'll still assert that's not good enough. Let Holkenborg cut loose with his instrumentation like he did in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Listen to the track We Do This Together from the Snyder Cut score and you'll hear what I'm talking about. If the Sonic movies sounded like that, we'd be talking. Now, word on the street is that Live and Learn will feature in Sonic 3, and if that's the case, and this isn't just the press circus deliberately misunderstanding things for the sake of a puff piece, then that is a huge step forward. Live and Learn is probably one of the most iconic pieces of video game music of all time, and it would be nothing short of a crime for it to not be included. Let's get Escape from the City in there as well, and maybe some other Sonic music into the incidental stuff, and I'll be one happy chap.
Better humour. And exposition in general. Please, can we get some better script work for 3? I don't believe I've fully explained my stance on this movie thus far, so my thesis statement is, first half mid, second half peak. I am right because eyebrows on fleek. I regard the second segment of this movie, that being everything after the dance sequence, as being absolute unadulterated Hedgehog action in its prime, and there's also the wedding debacle, but I'll touch on that in a second if you're still with me. But throughout the first solid 45 minutes, this film feels stuck in a limbo of conventional and uninspired kids film filler with exception to a couple good scenes, like the opening of Sonic in Seattle to establish the equilibrium and the initial confrontation with Knuckles. One sequence that immediately comes to mind with this topic of discussion is the big ol' exposition dump that happens in the trademarked Wade Cave. This one scene displays to me some of the biggest problems I have with the first half. Wade, I adore this mess of a guy, and he's one of the better additions the movies have made to the franchise, only being surpassed by the omnipotent god Agent Stone.
Look at you.
But the main gag he has in this segment is, haha, I'm referencing something completely unrelated and out of context. Laugh at the joke! The first half is filled with a lot of haha random XDDD type beat humour and just does not land for me at all, such as the dance scene. I did not care for the dance scene. It's a random cutaway from the main plot that could have been more interesting if they had actually had to fight their way out, but they couldn't use that card since they used it in movie 1 already, so damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's used to tighten the bond between Sonic and Tails, like, fair enough, but this was seriously the best way you could do it. If I wanted to stretch an excuse, I'd say that these sorts of jokes appeal to the younger demographic, and they are very clearly who this film wants to target, and that's a fair point. Personally though, I want to find Sonic genuinely funny again. The only times I can recall where I found Sonic media really funny was throughout the Boom series and this one panel from IDW that lives rent-free in my head. I love it way too much, just look at it, it's perfect. I don't really want to subject myself to humour that on repeat viewings I will find more irritating. I gotta be a critic and say what I don't like, and the first half's humour I do not like. Notice though I'm saying the first half. The second half is on another playing field entirely, since the humour arises from the characters quipping off one another or playing into their personalities and traits, which is just so much more enjoyable to witness, adds more depth, and is, well, actually funny. Even kids in the theatre laughed at these second half puns. But fart jokes, shit jokes, literally.
You know, I knew a kid in middle school named Knuckles. Could fit his
Can you do me a favor? Can you just shoot yourself?
Random XD jokes, references to contemporary media, drawn out gags that last too long, modern slang lingo. I don't really want to see that return. More witty second half humour, less rabid Robotnik. And then the other problem I had with the movie and the scene, the exposition dumping. As far as I can recall, there were no real big scenes of info dumping in film 1, or if there was, then it was in the monologue that there is at the start. The rules were set up, characters were established, and plot points were expressed in a natural way, resulting in a small but consistent story. In Sonic 2, just fucking have a PlayStation now, but tell our pro tags what to do and why they're doing it. I didn't notice much at first, but on my third viewing, yes, shut up, the exposition and juxtaposed flashback sequences become increasingly jarring and disconnects you from the rest of the movie. Let me be clear though, that the one in Siberia is fine. It makes sense and it's illustrated brilliantly, but the long claw dump is what I have a problem with. We were on the verge of greatness, we were this close, but information is overall conveyed in a weaker way in this movie compared to 1. I'm sorry, but from a critical standpoint, this plot is conveyed more messily, and we need to address this so that this part of writing can be fixed for film 3. Oh yeah, the wedding, I forgot. It's bad. Yeah, there's really not much else to say. It adds nothing to the story. Gun's reveal was really stupid. Listen, if I wanted to watch a cheesy rom-com about a wedding, I'd turn over to E4 and watch some Celebrity First Dates or some other junk like that. Like, I don't care. So, is that it? I'm done here. Okay, cool. Please subscribe to my channel. I lack physical affection and must garner internet points to feel better. Okay, well, I'll see you.
Alright, yeah, that was good. Thank you for joining me today, actually. This has been fun. You guys can check out Tom Topics' channel. I will link it in the pinned comment, as well as Garrulous64 as well. He got a cameo, so that counts. Alright, well, you may leave, Tom. Obviously, we don't know the exact form Sonic 3 is going to take. Yes, it will be adapting Sonic Adventure 2 as confirmed by the writers, however, we don't know just how faithfully it will be doing this. Sonic 2 was a good adaptation of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it was by no means exact. But Sonic 2 was praised for being a bit more faithful to the games, and we are in a post-Mario movie world where it is proven that we can afford to take a few more risks. So I'm kinda hoping that we will see some of this stuff incorporated into movie 3 and beyond. None of this here is a must or a need as far as I'm concerned. Don't let the title fool you. I am just trying to survive on this platform, and I am happy to accept the movie on its own terms, provided it does what it does well. But what do you guys think? What are you hoping to see in Sonic 3 and beyond? Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is the link to my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name in the credits of these videos, with a special shout out to the patrons in the $5 and above tiers. They are Wilma, Carl X, Richard Rogers, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Kenkei of Warheads, Dazzle Fizzle, Super Hyper Mecha SP Mark II, Cirrus the Skeptic, Biotin, I've bought the entire helium supply, have fun blowing up balloons now, and Vera Wild. Thank you folks for your generosity, and to those of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.